Good morning, everybody. It's Dave here again. Dave in pain, as always. I will give you what would be my pain level, the time, and everything. So it is now January 25th. It is now 1:30 a.m. My pain level is about a 7, and I just took about 5 minutes ago a 10 milligram THC gummy along with my Lyrica in hopes that I can get my pain level down quickly. Um, so let's talk about something that I went through here for this whole process, and that was how did I figure out what could at least alleviate some of the pain? It doesn't alleviate all of it, but it does bring it down to a nice manageable level for at least a little bit. So back before the pain actually started, I was also having at the same time what I believe they call edema, which is fluid in your lower legs. My feet were blown up to twice their size, my ankles, and then eventually my I don't know what that is, whatever that is above your ankle. Sorry, my pain level's a little high. Having a problem thinking of what it's called. Um, uh, yeah. Anyway, they were swollen, and I knew that two things could help solve it. First one was elevation, which at one point in time was possible, but then when I lost the ability to sit and to lay down, that became an impossibility, making the whole thing a lot harder to accomplish because that was one of the main things. The other thing was walking for the most part. It actually gave some blood flow to my feet and then flowed into my ankles, and it just made my feet, my ankles, and whatever have you that was swollen go down. And when the pain started, I was still having a problem with my swelling, and it was getting even worse because I couldn't elevate. But the walking was helping both the swelling in my legs and the pain in my what was presenting in my shoulder. Okay, it was a neat feeling too because what would happen is, um, in the beginning, this was what would happen. It doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately, because it was a really neat feeling and I miss it. But what would happen is if when I got enough walking in, I would feel this like sort of release in my feet where like my shoes would get a little looser because my feet were no longer swollen and I would feel it. And at the same time, the pain in my shoulder would also go away. It was really neat. And it only happened for like the first month. Kind of a shame it doesn't happen anymore. I miss it. The reason why it doesn't happen anymore is I have found since other ways of dealing with my edema. I now do still do the walking, obviously, since I'm still in pain, but I now have compression socks to take care of that. And the joy of having compression socks on is I didn't realize how good it would feel when you get the blood flow to the rest of your extremities, like your toes. I can literally, when I put them on, I could actually feel the blood flow when I was having a lot of problems. I wear them fairly regularly now, the compression socks, so I don't really have the issues as much anymore with the edema, thank God. Um, it was kind of a pressing issue because I thought I was having heart issues as well. Apparently, it was related to something else. So far, that my heart's fine. They tested it, so they don't know what did it because I got out of it before they could test what was going on when it was going on. But I'm just glad it's over. Um, so yeah, that was what actually led me to learn that walking got rid of my, a little bit of my issue. Not a lot. I mean, enough that I was able to sometimes get a little bit of sleep and a little bit of relief throughout the day. It got me to a point where it was bearable. Um, at some point, it stopped working as well, but it always did work at least a little bit, so I can't stop doing it. It proved to be problematic at some point, though, because for me to get sleep when the pain is like a 10 plus, and that was often at some points. I would have to go for a walk, an extensive walk sometimes, then immediately go to sleep, and then I would wake up however much longer later. Most of the time, it was an hour and a half. Sometimes it was 2 hours. Occasionally, I got 3 hours before I woke up because the pain would just got that bad. But when I say the pain was bad, it was really bad. So I must have been so tired that I had to just pass out and just not wake up for a little while. That led to an issue of I had a period of time, and I'm still in that period of time, where I can't actually get fully undressed because the pain is so high. And the only things I can really do when the pain is that high is go to the bathroom and walk. I had to be prepared to be able to go do my walk immediately. That led to the situation I'm in now and have been in for the last, say, 6 months or so, that I can't fully get undressed ever for long periods of time. So, like, I have to get a shower, obviously. I have to change certain parts of clothing, like my socks and stuff like that. But I can't leave my shoes and socks off for long. That's kind of led to a really nasty problem of my shoes stink and my feet subsequently stink until I get a shower. So for the whole day, they're stuck in my shoes, and then I have to change my socks, and I have to get a shower. It's a whole big ordeal. And the other problem I'm having is that my shoes have flattened. These are almost brand new shoes when I got them, and they're pretty flattened and becoming almost unusable. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be in this situation. And my feet are important. All of our feet are important. You have to have good shoe wear. And I'm doing as much walking as I'm doing, sometimes 30,000 steps at a time, in a day. That's a lot of steps. That's a lot of, wear and tear on your feet, right? So I'm caught in the middle of, if I'm not going to have this problem for much longer, I'm stuck in these shoes. The next pair of shoes I have, they're going to stink too. So I had to get good footwear, but the amount of money I'm going to pay for them is going to be has to be stupid astronomical for them to work for what I'm doing. But anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, I do a lot of walking. It helps get rid of a lot of the pain. Like throughout the few months that I've had this stupid high amount of pain, the walking, as much as I have pains from the walking, and believe me, doing that many steps at my age, 46 years old, the feet hurt, the ankles hurt, the calves hurt, the thighs hurt, your butt hurts just because you're pulling your leg all the way up. Um, I got to the point, and I'm not sure if you can hear it or not, but I started using a cane just for balancing and to help ease some of the pressure off my legs, and then that started unbalancing me in one direction, so I had to get a second cane for the other arm, and now I walk around like oh, I can't remember what they were. They were some kind of puppet from Jim Henson where they had like extended arms and lower legs, but all four of them hit the ground. It was weird, but that's how I walk. I have extended arms from the canes and my legs, and that puts some pressure on my shoulders and my pec muscles, and just it causes a lot of other issues in between. So when I said I was in the hospital and the nurse noticed that I had other problems, those are the problems I was talking about. That's why she would give me other medicine on top of the oxycodone to kind of help with the other little pains that, are just normal wear and tear pains for a 46-year-old doing that many steps. Anyway, so yeah, I do. So when I started walking, I did a loop around the block that's by my house. It ended up being, it's a small block. It was a 0.2 miles. That's what I ended up marking it out as when I did a thing that gave me like how long a distance it was. It was 0.2 miles, so I knew that every 5 times around my My little block was a mile. It got pretty bad. Some days I was walking 5, 6, sometimes 7 miles in a day, no matter what was going on. The cool thing was that in the beginning, I could do that for a while because it was quite warm out. I think it wasn't until like mid November that the temperatures around me started dropping to the point where I was like, okay, we got to start bundling a little bit. So, I started off in the warmer weather in just shorts, a t-shirt, and my shoes and socks, right? Not not horrible, pretty simple, right? And you can stay in that for 24/7 and it won't be all that bad. Then when the temperature started dropping, I stayed in that, but then I added a sweatshirt, and then it got a little bit colder, and I added to that. I have a hooded robe that I wear. That is what I'm wearing in the picture you see on my YouTube's uh, picture, the channel's picture. Then it started to really get a little bit colder, and then I had to do something I don't do. I'm one of those assholes that doesn't wear pants. I hate wearing pants. It makes my legs feel weird. I just, I'm a weird person when it comes to my clothes. I don't like it touching me at all. If that makes any sense, I grew up in the 90s. Baggy clothing was the rage, and I was happy for it. You know, pants aren't baggy anymore. In fact, we've gone the exact opposite direction, and fat man me doesn't really wear pants like that. I used to wear Jenkos for God's sakes. Um, so anyway, skinny jeans are not my thing, and everything feels like skinny jeans to me unless they're like Jenko size. But I did happen to have two pair of sweatpants in my, you know, arsenal that were just the right size for my weight. Luckily, they weren't too small, they weren't too big, and they were just baggy enough that I could take it. I didn't like it, but I had no choice. The temperature was getting a little bit too cold for me. So now I'm sitting there bundled up in that, and as it got colder, I started adding like a scarf and gloves and a hat on top of the hoodie. And it finally just got to be way too cold to be out there for as long as I was with all that stuff on because now instead of fighting my pain, I'm fighting the weather, which, when you're in temperatures that were that cold, you're just trying to sustain life at that point. So instead of it was taking a lot longer for the pain to subside when I was out there. I had to come up with something drastic. Now, in my house, we have a lower level basement. We don't use it for anything. It was all for storage. It's the size, like it's the full size of my house, and it's divided in half. One side has, all of my appliances that I need down here, like my heater, my water heater, stuff like that, all the water lines and everything. And the other side, it has like the washer and dryer. And then at the time, it was just storage. So it had stuff that my girlfriend's saving for our sons when they get older and, old games we don't play with much, but we still want to keep for just in case, a lot of just, you accumulate junk. And then there was also a I don't know, 1960s kitchen down here because the previous owner who had this house built before me and what have you, they were an old Italian family, and apparently you have two kitchens in an Italian household. I'd never heard of that before, but they had one for show and one for actual cooking. So unfortunately, it was illegal, so we had to take parts of it out, but it was super heavy, so we couldn't get it out by ourselves, and it's stuck down here. So I've got a stove that weighs a lot that I can't get out of my basement. And then I have a double sink that's, I think, cast iron glazed over with porcelain that weighs a ton that I can't get out. And I don't trust my stairs. I can't do anything with my right arm, so I can't do any help with it. And, it's just a pain in my ass, to be honest with you. But I was desperate. So I had to come up with something. I had to use what I had, which was my basement. I had to start walking in my basement. It's not a very big basement, but it had enough of a what I call runway where I could continually walk before having to turn around. It had enough of one. So I used it. I cleaned it up as much as I could. Not the greatest, but I use it. That's what you hear me in now. One side echoes, the other side has, you know, noise dampening tiles, for a drop ceiling because the people who own this house owned it for most of their lives and then passed on to their children. So nothing was really changed in here since like it was built in 1955 or something like that. So a lot of the stuff in here is old, and so one side echoes when I walk through it. So I apologize for that. The other side doesn't, and I decided to take it over both sides. At one point, I was only using one side to walk on, and then I decided that I needed a longer runway, so I opened up the other side and cleaned that out. And then eventually, I ended up deciding that I'm going to actually turn my basement into my office for when I actually get done this horrible experience in my life of pure pain. I have an office where I have a recording studio because I do have another YouTube channel that I'd like to get back to where I get paid to do things, but I need to sit down to do that part of my life. So until then, I will do this. Hopefully, I get some traction. Some people enjoy what I do, um, which, you know, is hard to come by in this day and age. I'm not doing anything very spectacular, but hopefully, I'm helping somebody by telling my story. I'd like to hear your stories as well. Um, but anyway, so yeah, now I'm stuck in my basement, and it feels almost like this is like a tomb for me because I spend almost half my day down here walking, and so I'm trying to make it look nice. That's something you have to do for yourself. I didn't realize how important that was until I was down in my dreary basement that's, been used as a storage locker for who knows how long, and I'm starting to pretty it up. So that is a piece of advice I can give you today that I'd had to learn a hard way. And I was against it because I thought it was not true, but it's very true. Your environment, make it as comfortable and pretty for yourself as you can take. I myself have up, I play card games, so I have stuff from card games. I enjoy the Marvel universe, so I have Marvel stuff up. Whatever have you that you want to put it up. Uh, without anybody giving me any hate, because I've been one for a very long time, but I'm a Bills fan, and I have Bills stuff around me. Just make your environment the way you want it to be, and it may actually like spark a little bit of joy, and that little bit of whatever the chemical that happiness gives you in your brain may take maybe a small percentage of pain off. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it might. And I just have to give that piece of advice because I had to learn that the hard way. Where I'm in my dank dungeon doing my walk, and it was just a bunch of stuff that was stored in it, and I'm walking around it to get around, and I didn't feel any better. And it took a while for the pains to go away. And now that I've made it a happier place, and I'm doing this to, get all of my thoughts and what have you out of the way, I start to feel better sooner. For instance, my pain level actually dropped from a 7 all the way down to about a 2 right now. So, what that means is that I think I am going to go ahead and hop off here for now, but I'm sure I'm going to go try to get some sleep if I can, maybe get passed out. Hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen, but if not, I will be back promptly, and I'm sure you will be here to listen. Hopefully, I'll see you next time.